evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here and Jack Pinat. All the lights are currently lit here on track. And it is go, go, go!
Contact between the Mercedes teammates.
Denoso with a crafty manoeuvre up the inside. Masterclass from the Chilean.
Crucial championship points on offer
Do
here.
not count down Danny Berezne.
Longe has done the job. This is for the win between these two.
Freddie Rasmussen wins the United States Grand Prix.
Alfie Butcher wins for the first time ever. Lucas Blakely takes the championship. It's Barry Foreman.
Jarno Opmeer is your champion.
Good evening and another firm welcome to yet another round of PSGL. And, well, it's a familiar face alongside me once again, Tom Wilkinson. We haven't got that long to go. Many drivers in the lobby. I say that, there's only 14. But we want to get as much talking in as we can. First and foremost, though, how are you?
I'm okay. Looking forward to this. Just about recovered from Spa last week, which was another very good race. We've had a hat-trick of fantastically enjoyable races to start the season off. The championships looking a little bit one-sided, a third of the way into the campaign. Heading to China, which should be an interesting one as well. Not necessarily a track that you'd associate with brilliant racing, although in real life we'd had some classics over the years. So hopefully we can see something similar.
Yes, let's hope indeed. But yeah, China, a great circuit. Maybe not the best in previous F1 games, but this game, I think people have taken to it a lot nicer, and it's blended itself to definitely better racing. But we have seen a few Lewis Hamilton moments, crashing into the wall on the pit lane. You've seen that a little bit on this game. But it's going to be interesting to see what we get tonight. Very much lends itself to qualifying because overtaking not necessarily the easiest, but you don't really want to be first in qualifying with that long back straight that really does invite the overtakes.
Yeah, I think what you said about the track feeling so much better on this game is 100% true. I don't know whether it's the handling model on F124 being just that little bit strange compared to previous games. It just works really well. Everything's synced up for a circuit like Shanghai. The DRS training is going to be an interesting one because there's only a couple of DRS straights down the main straight where we could see some overtaking, maybe around the outside of the Snell section, turns 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then, like I said as well, that very long straight from 13 down into the heaviest braking zone of 14, and then it'll flick through 15 up towards the final corner of 16. Those are going to be the main areas of focus, maybe down to turn number 6 as well, the start of the second sector if people are feeling a little bit brave.
Indeed, yeah, and I think a lot of people are going to be feeling quite brave around here. It's not a circuit for the faint-hearted at all. You got to be very ballsy to make some of the moves around here. We have 19 drivers in the lobby. We're waiting for one more, possibly. Is it Azim, as per usual?
I think it is. Having issues with the game once again. I don't think it's his fault that he can just never get into the lobby. That is a shame because, of course, remember back to round 1 in Bahrain where Azim was taking part, was very, very quick.
Yes, indeed. Yes, I'm waiting to see what's being said. Gonna see. I'm gonna try and invite Azim and hope that maybe helps. It's not gonna do anything, I think, but hey, we can at least try, surely. if this does work, then I will be the designated inviter for Azam every single week. If that reigns true, but you can't say I haven't tried.
I mean, you're going to be his favourite person in the world if it does come off. Let's talk a little bit while you're doing that about the championship. It was first and second last week for the two favourites, Cameron Dow's and Mateo, but in the other order that they are in the championship, Cameron Dow's yet to finish outside of the top four so far, leading the way on 37 points. 16 clear, that is one full race victory clear of his nearest challenger, which is Mateo, who missed round number one, but picking up a win last week in Spa. Oscar a further 3 points behind, and then Epic Vale and Volokongan rounding out our top five. Volokongan, one of only a few drivers to score points in every race they have started. A 10th place, first off in Bahrain, and then a couple of fourth places to back that one up. And in the constructors, for people that are interested in that as well, it is Cameron Dow's Aston Martin leading the way. Only 5 points clear, though, of the Silver Arrows of Mercedes, 40 to 35. And then Alpine, as I nearly swallow my tongue, Alpine in third, a further 9 back on 26.
Yeah, the championship is looking pretty good for Cameron Dowds as things stand. My invite didn't work, so I replied with a sad trombone gif because obviously, that's exactly what you do in that instance. But we wait to see what happens here. Probably going to be getting underway at another 10 past the hour, as has been the case the last 2 rounds. So disappointing that Azam's not been able to get in for the last few rounds. It's really annoying. But Lafiti already been pinged, asking if they're available. Because obviously we want all 20 drivers on the grid in the most ideal circumstances. So let's see.
Yeah, going to be one to keep an eye on. We'll talk about the penalties as well from last week that were added or removed post-race. Dirk, remember, picked up a 20-second penalty, so dropped them out of the points. Did finish third and had that taken away, so jumping back up from 12th to third place, collecting those 10 points for Williams. And that went hand in hand with a couple of three-second penalties post-race. Alex Lofer, who ended up classified third, picked up 3 seconds later on for a collision with Casper Flack. That dropped the V-carb from third down into 9th. And Casper Flack, who was also inside the top 10, came home in 9th, picked up a 3-second penalty for a little bit of moving under braking, and that saw him fall down to 12th in the Ferrari.
Yeah, it was a pretty mixed bag for a race. A lot of real excitement. The rain that really did throw itself to a bit of unpredictability. Everyone really caught out with everything that went on. Some of the drivers, the rain hit earlier. For some of them, they thought it was going to go back to dry. A real mix of strategy. Some people took more of a gamble than others. It didn't work for everyone, but did give us that really good action-packed race that we wanted. China as well. It's known for some rain. It's known for a bit of the old wet weather. So we can't count it out following us for yet another race. After all, not Australia, Spa, and China both had lots of wet weather over the years. So who knows?
They have. And it's usually a decent determiner of who the best drivers on the grid are, whether they can manage to get the best out of themselves in very tricky conditions. And we saw that last week because Cameron Dow's and Mateo, the two favourites going into the championship, did manage to pull, I think, 6 seconds or so over the battling group behind. It was very much an exclusive club of 2 members battling for the win. If it does rain, I think they'll be pretty confident that it can be a 2-horse race once again and get rid of all of those external factors, all of those other 18 drivers that were making their lives a little bit harder in the early stages than they probably would have wanted.
Yes. It's definitely looking a little bit crazy, and I really think it's going to be yet another good round tonight. But we're trying to draft in a replacement, I believe. But I think one of the big points as well is Ewan, however it's actually pronounced, because I get it wrong every single time. Now a full-time driver.
And that's going to be a very interesting one because has had some very decent pace. Finished 7th as a reserve in the opening round of the season in Bahrain. He was in F2 fairly recently. I got to watch a little bit of him. Was absolutely rapid around Spa one week, so would have been disappointed to miss out last week when we did head over to Belgium. But if we can see some very impressive pace from Owen, then I think he'll be right at the sharp end and upsetting the apple cart from some of the maybe more established drivers in PSF1.
Yes, absolutely. He really has been quite good. But we are just a few moments away from getting underway for the race. We are just waiting to see if we can get someone drafted in later on. But for the moment, 19 drivers heading out for qualifying in just a couple of moments' time. It's raining! Let's take the tracks up.
I mean, you've predicted it absolutely perfectly. Not the blue striped wet weather tyres, just the green striped intermediates that we, of course, saw in the real life F1 this weekend in Australia. 18-minute qualifying session does change things around a little bit, of course, but just to get the formalities and the admin out of the way, 18-minute qualifying session, then we will reset the lobby to turn ghosting back on and collisions back on. Otherwise, we'll be seeing a 20-lap time trial race, which I don't think anybody is going to sign up to, and we're just making sure that nobody gets those cheeky advantages courtesy of the slipstream and the turret. I can also see that Owen has soft tyres selected in his pit garage. It's certainly not ready for the 6 just yet, but maybe he's thinking that he's going to wait until it dries out before heading out onto the circuit.
Telemetry disagrees. Telemetry says it's raining all the way through the session, so
interesting.
Maybe just not wanting to show what tyres he's on. Maybe just seeing if there is a chance that the softer tyres are better as well, because you can only see the delta time between the 2 tyres and see if it's improving by selecting them. So that's probably the main reason I would have thought why they would select the soft tyres, just to almost see a little bit if it is going to become feasible, because they can see that delta and see if it's heading in that direction. But it doesn't appear to be visually, and it certainly doesn't appear to, at least according to what the telemetry says, but telemetries can quite often be wrong, but what won't be wrong is what they set on the track.
Yeah, and I'm going to be interested to see if this level of rain lasts throughout the whole session, because it's not particularly heavy. Whether it'll go one way or the other, it'll just start to subside. We will be running on the slick tyres come the end of the session, or it will get heavier and maybe we'll have a bit of waffling and a bit of chatter to do with about 5 minutes to go. If it does get worse, we'll have to wait and see, and only time will tell. Elia in the Haas is going to be the first driver to experience these conditions at 100% pace, rounding the final corner, turn number 16. A little bit unstable is the Haas car and cutting the beam to start the first lap of the session. Already we're seeing drivers going all the way over to the right-hand side, probably to minimise the effects of the bumpiness down that main straight.
Yeah, so this is a common thing on the F1 game. They head over to that side just to try and reduce all the bumps and get a little bit more straight line speed. It is a minor thing, but hey, every millisecond counts, and well, for these drivers it really does make all of the difference. But a good start to the lap so far for Elia. Behind us, believe you've got Lifebout as well, who's on a hot lap as well. But most of the field already out onto the pit lane. A few drivers just about to begin their lap. But everyone really not wasting any time, wanting to get things underway. And you can totally understand why. Especially if this is going to be the best of the track conditions, they need to get the laps in as soon as possible.
100%. And there are also a couple of different strategies as Elias struggles to get the power down going through the double left-handers of turns 9 and 10. A little bit scruffy middle sector, has to be said, and misses the apex of 11 to boot as well. Whether you fuel for a couple of laps, just try and find a little bit of a rhythm, find a bit of a groove, and then set your fastest lap come the end of a 3 or 4 laps in, or you treat it as a normal qualifying session, low fuel, bolt out there on a brand new set of intermediates every single time. A couple of different ways for the drivers to approach it, so going to be fascinating to see if there is a bit of a split between our drivers on that front.
Yes, indeed. Elia heading around the final couple of bends now, and not shaped up to be too much of a bad lap, but I think if I look at the visuals, looks like Lifebout might just be that little bit closer than they were at the start of the lap, but Elliot up to the line. Not a bad start, a 140, but decimated by a 139.1 by Lifebout. So didn't seem like a bad intermediate lap, but Lifebout just finding a lot of pace in the wets.
Yeah, and I think we are going to see the times very, very different to what we've seen in the first 3 weeks. Usually it's very congested and Lifebout still nearly half a second clear of anybody else as the second house of Brando fills second spot. Third now taken by the Red Bull of Ryan, 139.6. Ryder now the first driver to get anywhere near the time set by Lifebout in the Papaya McLaren is Enzo Sabaton, the first of the Aston Martins. The drivers leading the Constructors' Championship in the Green Machine, setting at 39.4, just under 0.3 of a second off the benchmark from Lifebout.
Indeed, yeah, it's looking pretty close at the moment. Oscar is going to be the next driver after Francesco Largo to cross the line. He went up into fourth. Oscar manages 10th place on the grid for the moment. Now Johan under Sergioli. Johan manages 14th. Sergioli. No, that's Matteo, sorry. Top of the timesheets. That's a good lap time for Matteo. 2.5 tenths there, the difference between himself and Lifebout as well. That's a huge margin for everyone to try and chase, but you see the entire field separated. If you discount the outlier, 1.3 separating the field. Now Sergioli is going to be the slowest driver. Might just be a second warm-up lap there because that's 6 seconds off the pace. That's a little bit more than you'd expect to see, but pretty much everyone, first run's done. Matteo, and it really is clear out in front, but as you were saying just before, you know, the gaps, especially in the white, going to be that little bit bigger.
Yeah, and the punishment for making a mistake is going to be all the more important as well. And we've only had a couple of drivers invalidating. Balbelli, I hope I'm saying that right, in the RB car invalidating. Also Casper Flack, who picked up pole in the first 2 races of the season, invalidating in that scarlet red Ferrari car. And obviously Sergioli and Owen, neither of them getting a representative time on the board so far. Not too many places where you can invalidate. Maybe if you're a little bit lazy going into the hairpin of 14 and 15, you can run slightly wide. We're going to be thinking about turn 16, the final corner. If you take a little bit too much of that sausage curb, you can maybe Tony Hawk on the curb on the outside, and that can just spit you off into the runoff area and lose you the lap time. Anywhere else really of note? Not particularly. Maybe if you have loads of understeer coming through the long turn 12 and 13, you could fall outside track limits, but that shouldn't really be something that we're going to be talking about massively in this race. I don't expect to see too many 3-second penalties.
No, I don't think we will see many penalties at all across this entire session, really. I think everyone's going to probably be keeping it reasonably clean, all things considered, but you never know. These are racing drivers at the end of the day. They really can spring up a few surprises, but look at our grid, and talking of surprises, both ET8s very close together, and, maybe a little bit out of place where you may expect them to be?
Oh, it's a bit of a debate because actually on pace, Ryder and Epic Vale have been very evenly matched, but it's been Epic Vale that's had the headline results. Obviously picked up a podium in round number 1, currently sat 4th in the championship for Kick Sauber, whilst Ryder, the twin Sauber, sat down in 16th, which is 3 points to Epic Vale's 17. So it's been Epic Vale that's had the rub of the green so far, and if that continues, I think he's going to be a very, very happy driver. Cameron Dowles, I think, is going again, meanwhile, in the Aston Martin, 5th place at the moment, just under 0.3 of a second off the benchmark set by Matej, who is the only driver inside that 1 minute 39 barriers. Volakongan also going for a second flying lap on these intermediates. Azim has joined the session. Hallelujah, everybody. First time in a little while. Volakongan jumping up into 7th place, though. The lead Mercedes at the moment. Cameron Dowles just approaching the final corner. Is currently 0.3 of a second up. This could see him take the top of the timing charts away from Matej and move up into provisional pole position. He does by nearly 0.3 of a second. 38.6, starting to see the times come down a little bit.
Indeed, yeah, very good lap time from Cameron Dowles to go up to the top of the timesheets. And, those sector times, 2 purple sectors, 1 green sector. That's what you want to see at the end of a lap. That is really good stuff for Cameron Dowles. I can already just imagine how happy he will be feeling after that lap time. But already those second runs really quickly underway. Really going to be quite quick, this qualifying session. We've already got 9 minutes left on the session as Belbelly, really squirreling around. Azim has selected a car. we're being spoilt here, ladies and gentlemen. Not only has Azam got into the session, they've also selected a car. Ooh, we're pushing the boat out here.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And through all the excitement, I've just smashed my kneecap to pieces on the radiator that's next to me. So I'll be heading off to hospital once this is completed. But watching that middle set from Bell Belly, very exciting, very fun to drive, I imagine. Probably not the fastest way of approaching those long left-hand and right-hand sweeps of turns 7, 8 and 9. Maybe a little bit of a disconnect at the back of the car. Obviously, we are in parc fermé conditions as well. So if there is a little bit of a problem setup-wise, it's giving him a lot of oversteer at high speed, that could be detrimental to his chances of scoring some points.
Yeah, the sector times really weren't looking good. Marios, though, turn our attention to the Ferrari man, because this is a lap time to watch. 2 purple sectors thus far in the lap. This could be a very, very mean lap time if we've ever seen one. This is beautiful so far for Marios, heading down the straight at the moment. And telemetry says it's going to stop raining in 6 minutes.
Wow.
So this is going to be interesting. Right on the end of the session, it's going to stop raining. What do these drivers do? Well, Marios is going to try and put himself in the best position irrespective of what happens, because he's about to probably go to the top of the timesheet. No, he can't manage the top of the timesheets. It will only be second. But Lifebout, who's in 5th, he's also on a good lap as well. He's also got a purple sector 1, a purple sector 2. So what can Lifebout do? It seems that the track is really ramping up, because that purple sector 2 is now stolen by Ryderdale, who's in 6th place at the moment. So a lot of drivers making moves. Lifebout invalidates, attention turns to Ryderdale. He's on a good lap, but so is Matteo in 4th.
Lots of time starting to come in, and a combination of the track starting to get that little bit better. The rain is subsiding ever so slightly, plus the confidence level starting to improve. Ryderdale doesn't do what the Papaya McLaren of Lifeboat did, cutting on the inside of turn number 14 as Elliott jumps up into the top 5. Dirk now goes fastest, 38.5. Cameron Dow's back up onto the front row. Oscar with an improvement also, bumping the Ferraris down. Insert Ryderdale, who's in the low 1 minute 38, 1:38.1, smashes the benchmark just recently set by Dirk. Scratch that, because it's now Matteo back onto provisional pole with 6.5 minutes to go. 38 flat the time at the top of the timing charts now. These times really starting to tumble as the confidence builds and the rain stops.
Do you want to know something that I've just thought of, which could, in a weird way, be an absolute blessing in disguise? Azam hasn't driven a lap in these really wet conditions. So if it goes to dry, in a way, Azam could technically have an advantage, because Azam hasn't necessarily had to adapt to wetter conditions that other drivers have. Just a thought.
It's an interesting point. I don't think there'll be too much of an advantage there, and you can really see the rain starting to stop now. It's basically spitting, as Azam, on my screen at least, was purple in the first sector, tracking nicely through this middle sector, though a little bit wide there through turn number 8, and now the tricky double left-handers of 9 and 10, missing the apex of 9, can be very treacherous in the dry. The rain has almost officially stopped. The streaks have now stopped on the halo. We are going to be dry running until the end of the session. It is an Alpine 1-2. No, it is not, because Enzo Sabaton, the first driver, into the 1 minute 37, leading Matteo and Sergioli by just over a tenth between them. Now Azam rounding turns 12 and 13, a little bit wobbly. The intermediate tyres in these conditions are going to start to overheat slightly, but seeing that the rain has stopped, we are going to see at least one run from every driver on the soft tyres.
We'd expect to see absolutely that indeed, but yeah, the rain stopping a bit earlier than even the telemetry was saying. So interesting one there. Wherever this weather radar is that this telemetry uses, it is really missing the mark. But Azam wasn't on a bad lap time. The sector times were actually really quite representative. But there we go. There's the cue that everyone wanted. DRS enabled. That really tells us everything we needed to know, and the soft tyres being selected, and the first soft tyres out on the track.
This is going to be interesting, everybody. Going to be a race to get out of pit road and maybe get 2 flying laps on a set of soft compound tyres. You want to be on the right parts of the track at the right time in the session. It is Owen in that Red Bull car that is the only driver currently out on the slick red striped soft compound tyres. He is going to be the guinea pig for everybody to follow. Whether you go for 2 runs, fuel the car up a little bit just so you can get acclimatised to the changing track conditions, the ever-changing track conditions, as Owen nearly goes for a spin on his outlap going through turn number 9, desperately trying to get some heat into those soft compound tyres that on the radar are probably bright blue, almost ice cold, one might say. Enzo Sabaton's still out there as well on those intermediates, just returning to the pits with 3.5 minutes to go. I think people are watching the sectors that that Owen is putting in on his outlap and thinking maybe it's not quite ready yet for the soft tyre. Still looks a little bit slippery and a little bit greasy out there.
Yes, it definitely is a little bit slippy, but the more time you get yourself on these soft tyres, the better, really, because you're going to lay down more rubber, you're going to get the track into that better condition, but wow, the way the car slides there into the hairpin at the end of the lap, you can tell there is a real struggle going on here, and into the pit lane. That is interesting.
I think he's burnt up those soft tyres already, probably jumping back into the pits to try and get some tyre temperatures back as well. So maybe just going that little bit early, but that probably tells us that everybody's going to be in a very similar boat, that you can see the cloud cover. It's not going to be very warm, so tyre temperatures could be key. If you can get your tyres working on the outlap, then you're going to be standing in a very good position to steal pole. This is effectively now a one-shot qualifying session for all of our 20 drivers.
Indeed, yeah. The track temperature is sitting at just 27 degrees. So it's not exactly freezing, but it's definitely not warm at all. So, yeah, an air temperature of 20 degrees. Not ideal situation for any of the drivers, really. But these drivers know what they're doing. You don't need to get them to, have a load of time on those tyres. They know exactly what they're doing. They will deliver.
This is where you need the skill set of somebody like Jenson Button, for example, where he was absolutely brilliant at knowing where to put the car in these conditions when it was just on the edge of slicks and intermediates. And whoever's going to find that edge and find the confidence, because Owen was seemingly lacking confidence on that outlap, could be taking provisional pole. We could see a very mixed up grid with some of the big names potentially getting caught out. We've got the 2 Aston Martins out very early in the train. Conversely, the 2 Alpines towards the back, along with the 2 Ferrari cars. Everybody's going to get just the one flying lap in. It's going to be an absolutely crucial one.
We already have our first either blunder or blinder. Elia, on a set of intermediate tyres. Blunder or blinder? That is the question. And it really could go either way, because the soft tyres do still look to be struggling, but I think give it this lap, and by the end of it, it could be really in the soft tyre window. I'm really interested to see how it goes for TF10 Elia, who's 11th at the moment. It could either be P1 or P20. It really could be either one of the extremes, but it also could look even worse in the event that the tyres really just aren't there.
100%. It's going to be do or die for not just Ellie, but a lot of the drivers. And I'm looking at their tyre temperatures, and they are still on the low side. So going to be very slippery out there. Going to be struggling to get the grip, and with those tyres almost ice cold. Ryan is going to be the first to set a flying lap. Some drivers might not get round, actually. We've only got 15 seconds to go. I think they've been a little bit slow on the outlap, trying to get temperature in the tyres. This is going to be cut and go for a lot of people here. The Kick Sauber at the back of the pack, I think, is almost certainly not going to get round. Ryan struggling for grip in the first sector. 3, 2, and 1. Is everybody going to get round? No, Riderdown misses the flag.
Yeah, that's not good for Riderdown. Purple Sector 1 for Ryan so far on this lap. Well, Purple Sector 1, that's normally a little bit misleading because the game tells you everything, so Purple Sector 1 as far as it's concerned. But only one driver on the intermediates. That is the real gamble. That is the real problem that we've got on our hands. But I'm just looking on my on the mini-map. It looks like, I believe it is Lifebow is really making a few inroads on Elia. So I do think it is absolutely in dry and slick tyre time. And Ryan is showing it. 2.5 seconds improvement. It's going to be a P20 for Elia. I would almost think, unless there's a few people who are invalidating. Epic Vale has invalidated. Francesco Largo has invalidated as well. So actually, there is a few drivers who aren't going to be making that P20 for Elia, but it is not ideal at all. Round the final corner, Ryan goes. What will it be? It is P1, understandably so. A 133, Elia across the line, surely not making an improvement. It does make an improvement, but not exactly much of one. But Matteo is really in the mix here. Now he's next to cross the line. Purple sector 1, green sector 2. What's it going to be? Francesco Largo to the top, Brandon to the top, Matteo to the top. Everyone's to the top of the timesheets. Marios was the final driver to come across the line. I think he invalidated. He's P19. Matteo on pole. Francesco Largo second. Brando third. Sergioli fourth. Cameron Dowds in fifth. I don't think we saw half of those drivers cross the line because everyone was there.
And because they were so late over the line to start the lap as well. Everybody leaving it very, very late, playing with fire, you could say. But listen, Italy 1, 2, 3, 4. Alpines first and fourth with Largo and Brando in between. Solid lap from Cameron Dowes inside the top 5. Dirk, Owen, Epic Vale, and then the two Mercedes of Volokongen and Oscar. As I'm getting into 11th ahead of Casper Flack and Lifebout. Ryan, who was the first over the line, potentially paying the price for that a little bit. Max von der Geest, Elia on the intermediates. Enzo, Sabaton, Ryderdal, Mario's Formula, and then Bell B rounding everybody off. 7.2 seconds covering the field, although the soft times were covered by just 8/10.
Yeah, that's a bit more of a representative gap you would expect to see. But we are going to have suspect. Our usual lobby restart. The weather for the race was going to be dry, but now we'll have that lobby restart and it all gets shaken up and it could be completely different. But we're going to take a short advertisement break. We'll be back on the other side. We're just going to have a quick word from our sponsors. We'll analyse all that qualifying on the other side. See you in a second. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, what a 18-minute qualifying session. We had all of the laps up until that final run pretty much meaningless because the track just about dried up enough for those slick tyres. Really interesting qualifying. Matteo's going to be happy. He's on pole. That's exactly where he wants to be for his chances in this championship. And, well, quite a few drivers getting invalidations and not performing.
100%. And what we also saw, as we probably would have expected, the drivers that were right at the back of the queue had the best of the track conditions and more often than not found themselves nestled inside the top 10 and even the top 5. It was the early runners, the two McLarens, Ryan as well in the Rebel, who was first over the line, that got bumped down towards the end of the session. They were playing with fire though, because obviously Ryderdal failed to get round in the first place, and a lot of drivers, the two Ferraris in particular, the two Alpines as well, were very, very close to not making it round. I think 3 or 2 seconds that they had in hand. So they were very, very close to ending up right at the back, but for the majority of them at the back of the pack, they found themselves on the first couple of rows, which they'll be absolutely delighted about.
Yes, indeed. An interesting comment made by TF10 Dirk. Italians are used to these conditions, was the question he asked to the top 4. And, well, you've got an Italian 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a reasonable assumption to make. The Italians were really on it. They just made the right call. All of them were really towards the back of the order, and well, they knew that they needed to leave it to the last minute in these sort of conditions because everyone else is going to be laying down all of that grippy rubber ahead of them that gives them the best chance of being up at P1.
Yeah, they get that little bit of a reference as well going further back in the train. They can see maybe if there are any mistakes that a couple of drivers make. If somebody had gone off, they would have known, right, it might be a little bit slippery in this part of the circuit. Just maybe take a little bit more care and be a little bit more cautious going into it. So that's going to be a very interesting one to see how they take that confidence into the race where it is probably going to be dry, although we don't 100% know just yet, courtesy of our little lobby reset. But yeah, the Italians obviously very confident. I'm looking forward if we go to Monza any time in the future, because that is going to be absolutely wild with about, well, I'd say 33% of the drivers on our grid Italian. They're all going to be hoping to win their home Grand Prix when we next go there.
Yes, any Italian Grand Prix for about a grid of Italians is going to be quite honestly insane. He wins in Spa, he wins in Monza, and an Italian wins in Italy. That would just be pure scenes. But we are just getting the lobby and the grid set for this race. But 28 laps ahead of us of China. You know, it's a circuit that these drivers may not have as much practice on as they do others. What are we expecting going into this race?
It's going to be a real interesting one. If you remember sort of maybe 10 years ago in the F1 games, China was a horrible track to drive, mainly because the tyre wear was so high. In a 25% race, for example, you almost had to do a two-stop potentially, depending if your soft tyres that you qualified on were absolutely ruined after that 18-minute session. So not quite as high as it used to be, but still tyre wear is going to be a big factor. I'd be very surprised if we see anybody use the soft tyres in this race. Should be a very standard medium hard stint, unless they can, or hard medium is probably the way they're going to go, unless they can extend those hards very far into the race. Safety cars also going to play a factor, not like a street circuit. The walls aren't particularly close, but you can just get a pinball perhaps maybe in the middle sector and find yourself in the gravel and then skating into some of the Armco barriers surrounding this Chinese Grand Prix circuit. The muscle memory as well might not be quite there. Obviously, China had a period off the real-life F1 calendar from 2020 to 2023, I think it was. We didn't have the Chinese Grand Prix. So it was almost it was on the subs bench, if you like, on the F1 game.
The subs bench, I love that. That's a good analogy, that one. But yeah, we are in for an absolute treat. Not a chance that we have any lack of drama, any lack of treat here. And the ready up signal having been given has been responded to, and everyone seemingly is pretty much already in just readied up, and we should be not that far away from getting things underway.
Excellent news. Green lights flashing in the top of our screen saying ready. The conditions actually almost identical of qualifying. It is dry, but a lot of cloud cover, very overcast conditions. Not the sort of angry grey clouds that we would see if it was about to bucket it down with rain. Just that light cloud cover of those nice sort of light grey clouds, maybe a little bit friendlier than the storm clouds that we can sometimes become accustomed to on this game. Getting the strategy sorted, obviously reapplying the setups as well, and the fuel load is going to be very, very important to see what direction drivers go on that front as well. Expecting the majority of them to start on the white-walled hard compound tyres as well, unless anyone wants to be a little bit of a maverick perhaps and go on the mediums, or indeed the softs, although I don't expect them to make too much of an appearance unless we see that safety car.
Indeed, yeah, that's going to be the main opportunity to try those tyres, is going to be if we do see the safety car late on in the race stick on instead of that those soft wall tyres. But we are pretty much going to be ready to go here in just a couple of moments' time. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights here for round number 4 of this championship, and it is lights out and away we go here in Shanghai. Matteo leads us away towards turn number 1, but do not count out Francesco Largo, who will take it to the inside here. Matteo has to give him the room, and now Francesco Largo will have the inside here in towards this tricky very long sweeping right and then the sweeping left. They'll still come out side by side with one another. Francesco Largo, though, will have the inside line in towards this corner if he wants to make a move for the race lead, but he'll stick it behind. But there's the 3 wide moment in the background there. That's TF10 Dirk, Yoin and Sergioli involved in that one. All 3 made it relatively unscathed, but a scary moment at the start of the race.
Couple of terrible first laps as well. Sergio ran into the back of, I think it was Branda going into turn number 1, got balked in behind the Haas car, and that caught out Cameron Dowles, who's dropped down into 9th position from 5th on the grid. Just got bundled out. A couple of cars, lots of cars going wide, notably the Haas of Elia right at the rear of the field. I think a Ferrari ran into the runoff area also as well. Battles are plenty going on between Mercedes, Ferraris and McLarens just outside the top 10. Lots of drivers 3 wide coming around 13.
Yeah, lots of drivers really blitzing it to begin the race so far. But a relatively clean start for most. Not looking too shabby at all. And quite a few moves being made for quite a few drivers as TF10 Dirk and Johan continue to battle. But everyone on the hard compound tyres. It's a boring choice, but it was the obvious choice.
It was indeed. I think everybody's going to be delighted that nobody has gone differently in the pack. Williams going wide through the final corner. That is going to be Max von der Gies leaking a couple of places. Dirk trying to get 4th place back from Owen, but could drop down to 6th because Epic Vale in the kick Sauber absolutely launching it around the outside. How's the confidence fella around the outside? Turns to the inside of turn number 3. Can Epic Vale get himself into the top 5? Yes, indeed he can. Dirk loses another place down into 6th position. And Cameron Dowles has fallen into 14th, so struggling to get tyre temperature on those hard tyres compared to everybody else in the Aston Martin. Started in 5th, don't forget. Lost 9 places in the opening lap and a bit. Make that 10 as Ryder Dowles up the inside.
Indeed, yeah, really difficult for Cameron Dowles off the start of this race. But hey, you know, it's not always going to be your best race in the world. And it's not been the best of starts for Cameron Dowles, who is down 9 places since the opening lap of the race. But much to the elation of the likes of Casper Flack, Johan, Epic Vale, they're all up 3. So quite a few drivers having a good start to the race.
Yeah, and obviously as we see yellow flags for the first time, somebody going slow. I think that is Max von der Gies, who's been a little bit bullied on this opening lap and a half and now falls right down to the rear of the field and crucially outside of the DRS range of Mario's Formula out in front. Matteo still with Francesco Largo in hot pursuit. Remember the RB classified 2nd but ended up winning the season opener in Bahrain as a reserve. We haven't seen him since, but doing very, very nicely indeed, running just 0.3 of a second off the back of the Alpine and reigning champion. Cameron Dowles has managed to stem the flow of positions being lost, holding station in 14th at the moment as fastest laps going down through the entire field as Casper Flack holding it at the moment on a 34 flat. Francesco Largo very close to the back of Matteo, down into turn number 1, but not thinking about a move around the outside or indeed the inside.
Yes, and the forecast showing that it is going to be dry throughout, probably much to the elation of these drivers. But yes, that air temperature 21 degrees, the sun coming out, taking that up to 22, with that track temperature sitting at a pretty little 31. These drivers, they're going to be happy with that. No more wet weather to contend with for the remainder of the weekend, it seems.
Not sure if you caught it there, but Epic Vale, absolutely beautiful move around the outside of turn number 6, continuing to make up places in the early stages, relegating Owen back down into 5th place. Textbook stuff from Epic Vale, currently 4th in the championship and now holding 4th in this race as well.
Yes, he's doing a good job so far in the race, and it's a good start to the race for quite a few drivers. Matteo's doing a good job to manage the race from P1. He's really being able to just make enough gap that he's not really under too much threat down the straight from those behind. In fact, actually, Francesco Largo is really having to do a little more looking behind at Brando than he is really at Matteo in front, just because of the gap that he's able to build as Sergioli is making a move here on maybe 1 and maybe 2 drivers. He's really getting into the mix here. Thought about a move and made the move on Johan, but wasn't able to make it on Epic Vale. So then lost both places, but the Alpine looking quite feisty.
Yeah, the reigning F2 champion, of course, although it hasn't been a particularly easy transition into F1 for the first time Owen, trying to get 4th place back from Epic Vale. Just having a little look up the inside of turn number 2, but coming through 3. Massive snap of oversteer and having to hold firm behind the kicks Albert. Just an update on Cameron Dowles. I was trying to ride on board with the Aston Martin to see if there was any damage there. He is missing significant parts of his front wingers. Sergioli now sending it back up the inside of Owen, this time into turn number 6. But as we saw at the end of the previous lap, Owen has the traction coming out of the slow speed corners to hold station and hold that position. Yeah, Cameron Dowles, though, missing, I think, is his right-hand end plate. That's going to be significant around a circuit like China, so I wouldn't expect to see that Aston Martin returning to the points anytime soon.
Yeah, a lot of left-hand corners around here, and quite a few of them being quite long as well. Not as many long left-handers as there are right-handers. You'd hate to lose a bit of your left end like that, hurt you even more, but definitely going to be quite a bit to the detriment of Cameron Dowds with some of these high-speed corners, that is for sure. But moving through this lap, and once again, Epic Vale making a move. This time, he's not having to defend a place or nearly be overtaken. He's making an overtake himself as he gets alongside and ahead of Brando, but can't quite hold it on the exit there, and will have to slot back into fourth. But Epic Vale, he's looking mega.
Races never boring when they've got Epic Vale in there, are they? He usually likes a little bit of battling. Sergio and Owen continuing to scrap behind. Owen was having to defend, now having to attack up the inside of Epic Vale, who was slightly wide coming through turn number 2 of the snail section. And now the kick Sauber turns to the inside, defends it staunchly, and holds on to that fourth place that he worked so hard to pick up a few laps ago. And Sergio, once again, his attempts at trying to get 5th place thwarted. Owen ducking to the left and the right to try and get past the Sauber. Dirk back up the inside, but he dips a wheel in the gravel. That's going to cost him the opportunity to get past Sergio, who missed his braking point crucially down into turn number 6, but holds on to position number 6.
Indeed, yeah, Sergio is doing a good job at the moment in this race, but absolutely the main man at the moment, I think, is going to be Epic Vale. He's really managing his race in a really aggressive but good way. He's just doing exactly what he needs to do to give himself a good chance of getting really into the fold for the race when he's in that good place, where he's able to make moves, he's got good pace, he's got the tyres, he can really lean on and make a good progress in this race. But on this occasion, it doesn't seem like he's as close to Brando as he has been in the past, but a bit of a Constantina effect happening down the straight this time. But Casper Flack and, well, Dirk battling as well, as I see Casper Flack has a bit of damage to his end plate as well.
Yeah, he must have gone steaming down into turn number 14 as we've got a couple of cars off the road. One of the McLaren's falling off the circuit through the final corner. Big cluster of cars that have just fallen out of DRS range of the top 6. Casper Flack back down the inside of Dirk into turn number 1. Is the Ferrari going to come out on top, or is that limited downforce courtesy of the front wing damage going to really halt his charge? And Dirk sweeping around the outside does hold on to 7th place. And then look at that gaggle of cars behind the 2 McLarens getting stuck into each other just outside the top 10. I think it was Lifebout that went wide through the final corner, but making the most of that is Azim, who moves up into 11th place, holding on to that position ahead of his teammate.
Yeah, and thinking about making that P10 if he can, but a bit of contact wheel to wheel with TF10 Ryan will thwart his attempt at that place and into the points for the time being. But the McLaren man on his return to racing and connection into the lobby appears to be having a stronger time of it than he has in recent memory, but is looking good at the moment as Dirk just gets back into that 1 second window just in time for that DR. Oh, is it just? It might not be, but a purple sector 2 is a not bad sign for TF10 Dirk. But down the straight, is he going to have the rear wing? Just about has the rear wing, and he will see a couple of cars overtake him, but as long as they stay within a second of the top pack, that's what they'll be looking for.
Going to be really difficult with the gap out at 1.7 seconds now as they come round the penultimate corner. So we already have a significant break in the DRS train. Matteo also no longer leads this. He got overtaken by Francesco Largo and by Brando down the straight into turn number 14. So it's RB from Haas from Alpine now as Oscar and Casper Flack continue to have it out into turn number 1. I think that was a brake marker ball being destroyed by somebody, potentially Dirk, who's continuing to leak places, given the cold shoulder by the Ferrari on the outside. Azim trying to stick that papaya nose in a place that is not particularly welcome, and now launching it around the outside of the slightly compromised Casper Flack, somehow with nearly 4 wide going through the snail section, with certainly 3 wide, and it's now the Ferrari versus the Red Bull down to turn number 6. Azim was pushing both of them into the braking zone. Casper Flack on the inside, contact again, this time between Azim and Ryan. There's not a lot of space left on the left-hand side for the Red Bull of Ryan, but with the traction on the exit, he is going to get 9th place back. Casper Flack fighting all he can, but starting to struggle with that front wing damage, and launching it up the inside is Azim. That was much easier for the McLaren.
I mean, 3 wide on the exit of that sequence of corners. is absolutely insane. I'm not sure how they managed to keep that all clean and not really lose much time either. That's the impressive thing as well. It's very easy to make a move like that and lose a second or two to the car in front, but they've not. They've managed to keep nicely onto the back of Dirk, Oscar in front, which makes it a little bit easier for them, but they still got that gap at now 2.7, 2.8. That's insane how that gap has really opened up since it has been made. But Brando, taking it to P1, has made that move nice and easily. Francesco Largo falls to second. Matteo still sits in third for the time being, but the top eight, the top six, sorry, in a bit of a league of their own for the time being. And I don't think there's going to be much that those behind can really do.
No, especially when they're fighting tooth and nail for these places, and Dirk almost pushing Oscar through the snail section. In fact, there is a little bit of contact between the Mercedes and the Mercedes-powered Williams car. Casper Flack has lost another couple of places, dropping behind Lifeboat and Volokonga to unlucky position number 13. And with that front wing damage, he's going to be joining Cameron Dowsing. The club are feeling a little bit sorry for themselves come the end of this 28th lap Grand Prix, but 3.2 seconds the gap. Now, the leading group of 6 just need to not be stupid in this battle. They've got a comfortable margin to everybody else behind. All of them can confirm themselves getting a very decent handful of points. They now just need to not do anything that could potentially jeopardise that opportunity. From 7th down, they're most certainly going to be doing these safety car dances. Cameron Dow's potentially losing another place as Ellie around the outside of turn number 9 and turn number 10. Wheel bang between the pair of them, and the Haas coming off second best and losing another place to Ryder Dow.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a little bit of red mist possibly in the cockpit of Cameron Dow's. He's not having a good time of it at the moment. And, well, you've got to understand why he's not having a particularly fun time. He's got damage to the car. He's not in a good place. He's not in contention for points. And he is in the chance of the championship. He cannot afford this sort of race at this stage in the championship as well. We're nearly halfway through. You know, he needs to be in the points really every week, because this is a good opportunity for the likes of Matteo and Francesco Largo and all of these drivers to gain huge points on him. And if that happens, it could be really inviting a lot of drivers into the battle that previously weren't really in the picture.
100%. And it's good news as well in the championship for Matteo being in third and Cameron Dow's being all the way down in 14th. That is going to be a massive swing, and if he does win the race, I think they'll be level pegging at the top of the drivers' standings going into the back half of the campaign. So it's going to be a fascinating one to see how this develops. Cameron Dow's really needs something to go for him in this race if he is going to pick up a couple of points. Just try and keep yourself in contention with this second group of cars that are very interested in fighting amongst themselves. Oscar losing a couple of places on the previous lap, one to Dirk and one to Ryan, the two TF10 boys, now holding 7th and 8th in this place, with the two Papaya McLarens following in suit behind the Mercedes of Oscar.
Indeed, yeah, and I think these drivers know a little bit that it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to catch this gap, and that, you know, that opportunity for them to do so really isn't going to be there. So they may as well squabble out for these positions and fight for these positions that they have got to try and maximise their own points, because they know they're not going to realistically be able to get much more than that, as there is a change for the lead once again. It's Brando and Francesco Largo swapping places once more. No room for Matteo to get himself into the fight, as Epic Vale as well not able to really capitalise on the change of the lead. But I do wonder what happens if you are Ryan, Dirk, Oscar, even Azam. How much of a gamble do you want to take for your race? Do you want to pit earlier and give a bit of an attempt to try and close that gap, or is about that 4-second window just going to be too out of reach? The undercut is powerful, but how powerful do they think it is?
I think it's too early now, considering everybody's on the hard tyres. You don't want to waste it. It's such a good race tyre, those white struck tyres. You don't want to bring yourself in maybe 8 or 9 laps earlier than you should be doing. So I don't expect anybody to be coming into the pits until lap 14 at the earliest. Lifeboat with a massive snap of oversteer coming out of turn number 6 could relinquish 11th to Volokonga, but the Mercedes themselves not having a particularly good run through that corner and staying firmly underneath the rear wing of the Papaya McLaren, as opposed to being in a Papaya McLaren sandwich with Azin holding that final spot in the points paying positions. They've just got to try and be clever and work together. You know, you can DRS your way back up to that leading group if, of course, you have the pace. And so far from what we've seen, they don't have the pace to get themselves back into contention in this race without a safety car intervention.
Yes, and I think that's the difficult thing. They would need an intervention from Bert Mylander, which isn't particularly uncommon, but it's not very common. You know, China is a difficult circuit to get Bert Mylander at because there's a lot of runoff areas around this circuit that really does prevent safety car coming out quite as much. But a couple of moves being made. Ryan and Dirk swapping places, but Azam gets up into 9th place and ahead of Oscar. And we see Ryan and Dirk almost working together a little bit, but the gap's still growing. And that's the real disappointing thing, is the fact that they're really not able, because they're not getting that slipstream advantage, they're really, really struggling.
Writing is on the wall, I think it's fair to say. That's the biggest the gap has been so far in this race. Owen, with a not particularly good run out of turn number 6, was under a little bit of pressure from the Alpine of Sergio. Ryan and Azam continuing to stick their teeth into one another. It's the Red Bull that comes out on top so far in this scrap for what is now 8th and 9th position, with Oscar behind the pair of them, and Lifeboat still in hot pursuit. Casper Black trying to cling on to the coattails of that second group of cars with that front wing damage, of course, that is hobbling the charge of the Ferrari and indeed the Aston Martin of Cameron Dow's behind. We could have 3 breaks in the DRS train now between 17th and 18th, 12th and 13th, and 6th and 7th.
Yeah, it's got a few different trains opening up, and it's difficult now. Once you kind of get yourself out of that train, it's very difficult to get yourself back in, as we're seeing with Dirk and everyone ahead. But Dirk losing 2 places down the straight, which isn't great. Azam may have about 1,000,001 connection issues, but he doesn't seem to have any pace issues. His pace is looking strong here. He's 8th on the road at the moment, but challenging at the moment for 7th versus CF10 Ryan. He's showing that when he can actually get into a lobby, he's got some pretty good pace.
99 problems, but his speed ain't one of them. But Dirk trying to hang it around the outside of not just Ryan, but the McLaren of Azam, who has only just got up into 7th place for what is the first time in this race. Chopping across the front wing of the Williams is Azam, and holds firm in 7th for the time being, leaving everybody else behind to try and scrap it out. Lifeboat cranked on the steering lock going into turn number 14 in his attempts to try and launch it up the inside of Oscar, but was unsuccessful in that attempt. Cameron Dowles has managed to get up into 13th. Casper Flack has lost 3 more places, in fact, was 13th, now down in 16th. Ryderdale also mired in midfield mayhem right at the back of this group of cars. Not good for that second kick Sauber. And like we said before, the pace between Epic Vale and Ryderdale hasn't been too different, but yeah, the luck definitely with Casper, or with Epic Vale, in this season so far. He's making the most of the pace. Ryderdale certainly is not doing that.
Indeed, yeah, for exactly that. Interesting though, Azam got up into P7, has only gained time on the cars in front so far. Burning the battery, maybe, but pace isn't looking too bad. As soon as they go down the straight though, that's where you're going to lose a lot of time. But it doesn't seem like Azam's going to be overtaken, so a sign that maybe the right man is at the leading of the train for the time being, as there's a lot of squabbling behind with both TF10s and then Lifeboat and Oscar going side by side and battling, but that all fizzles out quite nicely. As Dirk now is in 8th, Ryan in 9th, and then Lifeboat, Oscar and Volokongan 11th, all the way down from 10th to 12th, but everyone relatively calm, to all things considered, despite the fact the stage of the race we're in, as Lifeboat and Volokongan go side by side.
Oh, very close indeed. Oscar's been shuffled outside of the point stand to 12th position. He was at one stage at the very front of this train of cars, now finds himself almost at the very back of it. Lifeboat and Volokongan continuing to squabble over that final points place position. And here's the McLaren with the traction on the exit of turn number 6 to hold firm in 10th position for the time being. It is now the 2 Silver Arrows holding 11th and 12th, and they're going to have to be on the prowl to get themselves inside the top 10, as will Cameron Dowse, who is just about holding on to that second group of cars in front, doing a very decent job considering the circumstances. Does need something to go his way if he is going to score any points and try and hold on to that championship lead, because it is very much not in his hands at the moment, and he has a big lockup to boot as well down into turn number 11.
Indeed, yeah, really interesting from everyone who's racing at the moment. But Bell, first driver into the pit lane. First driver into the pit lane for a set of the medium compound tyres. 15 laps on them. maybe just about feasible without them dropping off too badly. But it's going to be difficult to take those comfortably to the end with good pace. And that's what we'll be looking at. Sergioli, though, into the pit lane. First driver of the leading pack into the pit lane. Then the drivers, Ryan, Cameron Dowds, both into the pit lane as well. I do wonder, though, are they going to change Cameron Dowds' front one?
I can't see. Yes, they are actually. The Aston Martin boys running out into the pit lane with a brand new front wing. So that's going to be a slightly prolonged stop for the championship leader, and that will see him right at the back of the pack. Interesting that Sergioli bit the bullet, jumped into the pits first. He was right at the back of the leading group of 6, so he obviously felt that he could try and gain an advantage, almost force the issue and force the hands off those 5 drivers in front to come in as well. Give himself that little bit of an advantage of the undercut and try and gain some track position that he wasn't able to pick up during that first stint.
Yeah, it wasn't like he was struggling. He was really in the mix with this pack, but by just doing 1 lap more on the tyres, because you'd expect to see the entire rest of the top 5 into the pit lane now, especially with one of the cars already in, you know, the undercut's there, and give it a lap or two, you'll easily fall a couple of seconds back if you haven't got the undercut going for you. I'll be interested to see quite what you know they do, and where Sergioli comes out and what the strategy is going to be for him. But as we now follow the leading pack through this sequence of corners, wow, look at that! All 5 of them into the pit lane. Oh, a little bit deep though from Matteo, but nothing really too dramatic there. But where will Sergioli be in all of this? There's pretty much everyone.
Oh, there's a car in the wall. There's a car in the wall.
Dear.
Enzo Sabaton's crashed into the pit lane, done the Lewis Hamilton, like you said. Sorry to jump in there, but it was quite dramatic. No front wing now on the Aston Martin car, and things going from bad to worse for the Aston Martin team.
Indeed, yeah, not ideal at all for him. But Sergioli, annoyingly, has not reaped the rewards out of all of this.
Sergioli got a whack up the backside, sorry, from Owen, just as he came out of the pit. So had a massive tank slapper, had an armful of opposite lock as well to try and hold the slide. Owen, thankfully, Sergioli keeping it pointing in the right direction, because that would have been a slam dunk penalty for the Red Bull had the Alpine gone round.
Indeed, and I noticed that Sergioli has damage to his car. I'm not sure where he's picked this up, but he has damage to the left end plate. And that's the side that you really don't want to get damage on around this circuit, because of how many long right-handers there are.
Probably explains why his undercut wasn't quite as powerful as it maybe should have been. Looking at hindsight, it was actually very smart of him to come in on that lap, because otherwise he would have had to do what the 2 McLarens are going to have to do and stay out a little bit longer, get hung out to dry, and potentially risk dropping out of the DRS group. But now with that significant front wing damage, I think he's going to drop out of that DRS train anyway. Look, 9/10 of a second. Owen's got to be thinking, right, I'm going to have to get past this guy ASAP.
Indeed, yeah, it's going to be all the more difficult, I think, for a lot of this leading pack, as everyone, a lot more drivers start to come into the pit. Elia has come in on this particular lap as well, and Marios will follow suit as well. But Francesco Largo will lead the field in terms of provisionally. He is the net race leader, but Matteo is looking very feisty on these mediums, and looks like he's wanting to get in the mix here, as Cameron Dowds, now that he's got a new front wing, fastest man on the track.
Yeah, but nobody really in the same postcode at the moment as that Aston Martin car. So going to be resigned probably to not picking up any points unless we do see a late race safety car. Interesting strategic calls from the 2 McLarens and Volokong, and they're opting to go very long into this stint. So they're going to be very fast come the end of this race, but leave themselves with a little bit more work to do than they would have liked. I think they're working together quite nicely, Leiper Azim and Volokong, and Casper Flack and Ryden out a further 6 seconds off the back of that leading trio. Then it's Max von der Gies, and then it's the net race leaders. Francesco Largo ahead of Matteo, Brando and Epic Vale, and Sergioli just clinging on to that quartet in front. Owen, now or never really. He's got to get past this Alpine, otherwise his chance of potentially winning this race could be going up in smoke.
Indeed, yeah, especially with that Alpine, with that bit of damage, it's really difficult to keep the speed through the corners, so it's going to be crucial to get past that Alpine now, which he has managed to do down the straight, but the Alpine will have a little bit less drag down the straight because there's less downforce. So It works a little bit in Johan's favour down the straight to try and keep the positions with the damage, but not able to keep it there, and there's a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Only one of those so far, though.
Criminal, though, from Asim. It was actually looking pretty good with the tyre offset that the two McLarens were building up. Change for the net race leaders. Matteo and Brando have pushed Francesco Largo down into net third on the road now. Max von der Geest on his very old hard tyres could be a bit of a spanner in the works for the leading group. Brando almost clatters into the rear of the Alpine and Matteo going through the Snell section. They're all boxed in underneath the rear wing of that slow-moving Williams car. Who's going to be first on the scene? It's going to be Matteo around the outside. Max von der Geest making him go the long way around. Brando trying to sniff an opportunity and send it all the way around the outside. He might have greater grip, but that is an absolute beauty of a pass there from the Haas. Max von der Geest, is he going to let the RB through? Yes, through goes Francesco Largo as well. Epic Vale going to capitalise also, and Owen I think is going to do the same.
Yeah, Johan probably having the more difficult of overtakes there for pretty much out of everyone. I think Max von der Geest was a little bit nice on letting people almost by a little bit. I don't think he put up as much of a fight as the drivers maybe expected, as everyone's pretty much through and cleared. And Max von der Geest now, Sergioli, just going to be the final driver to clear Max von der Geest, who is on those very old and aging hard compound tyres. Max von der Geest simply hasn't had the pace today. He really has been almost in a bit of no man's land. He's, you know, a pit stop behind now. He really just hasn't been in a good place in the race. Even if he's to go on to the world's grippiest soft compound tyres, it's not going to make a difference to his race. He is really completely out of the points and out of contention. So, you know, might as well.
Beautiful move, sorry there, but Matteo, he's got the fresher tyres, but he's just done a double overtake around the outside of turn number one. It was absolutely picture perfect, and he's left his rivals absolutely in his wake. Everybody getting boxed in behind Casper Flack and Ryder Dahl, who have also yet to pit, still on the hard tyre they started the race on. Could get out of DRS range here. Brando launching it out the inside, needs to get a shift on. Francesco Largo following through. Epic Vale getting bogged down behind his teammate and actually getting past Francesco Largo, who had an absolutely abhorrent run coming out of turn number 6. Look at the gap out in front. It's 1.0 seconds. Matteo has an opportunity to try and escape. Can Brado keep him in check?
Yeah, and Sergioli will now fall off of the race lead train because Casper Flack is very close to falling off of the back of Johan, which could now see this one singular Alpine in a world of their own. Sergioli is actually going to be in a bit of no man's land. No one around him once these two hard compound runners pit, because he'll have TF10 Ryan behind, about 2 seconds behind, so he's in a bit of a fight with himself, really, as the top 5, annoyingly, Matteo not able, well, I say annoyingly, annoying for him, he wasn't able to keep that 1 second window.
Yeah, Brando doing a very decent job of keeping that Alpine in check, as we're going to see a pass for 4th place. Francesco Largo, who at one stage was leading this group as they came out of the pits, now finds himself right at the back of the quintet that are going to take us from now until the end of lap number 28 in a battle for the race victory. Sergioli has been well and truly dropped 2.3 seconds, a gap now between 5th and 6th position. Max von der Geest has caught up to Casper Flack and Ryder Dahl, and TF10 Ryan is going to be arriving on the scene very shortly indeed. Casper Flack and Ryder Dahl clearly goal hanging for a safety car in the latter stages. Casper Flack with that front wing damage hasn't quite had the pace of Ryder Dahl, just been bogged down, caught battling with drivers that have had a little bit of damage. The top 5 covered by just 1 second. This is going to be fascinating.
Indeed, yeah, it really is looking quite good for all of the top 5 at the moment, because they really are. They know as long as they keep it clean, even if they finish 5th out of 5th, you know, you're going to get some decent points out of this race, and they're all going to be quite happy and satisfied with that. Now Ryan having to try and overtake the 3 hard tyre runners. I'm going to see again exactly what we saw before, where the gap opens up between, you know, whoever's leading the hards and the next driver on the mediums, you know, and just almost slows everyone who's on the set of the mediums down, whilst the hard tyres fall like a stone a little bit through the field again.
Yeah, and it's really helped Oscar and Dirk, who have managed to pull back up to the rear of the Red Bull of Ryan, who at one stage coming out of the pits was, I think, 2 seconds clear of the Williams and the Mercedes, respectively. So it hasn't worked out for Ryan, even though he pulled off an absolute beauty of an overtake to get past Max von der Gies, but bogged down this time behind the Ferrari of Casper Flack coming round the final corner. Can he pull off a double overtake similar to what we saw Matteo do? No, it's actually the Ferrari of Casper Flack up the inside of Ryderdal. Almost into the back goes Ryan, almost into the back of the Ryan goes Dirk, and almost into the back of Dirk goes Oscar.
Yeah, Ryan really having to try and rein the neck out of the car to make these couple moves, which, you know, he should really be able to make with ease, but these hard compound runners, they are really putting up as much of a fight as they can. Look at the way that Ryderdal and Casper Flack are almost working together to try and prevent the moves being made, but Ryan will hopefully hold it around the outside, but he can't hold it around the outside, so that's Casper Flack back up into 7th place. He'll get a tap on the rear from Dirk as well. He'll try and invite himself into the frame to make a move on the CF10 man, but now Sergioli has a 3-second buffer, which was previously only about 1 second or so.
Yeah, really backing up this midfield group of cars. Azam's right in the thick of this, as is Elia, and Cameron Dowd's now back in the conversation, so the championship leader could pick up a couple of points as Max von der Gies is going to get relegated all the way down into 15th position. Ryan does get past Casper Flack, although the Ferrari might use a little bit of slipstream to try and get back past the Red Bull car. No, he's going to get absolutely swallowed up, I think, here by the Williams and the Mercedes of Oscar and Dirk, respectively. Down into the braking zone of 14 we go with 3 wide. It's going to be a pinch point at the apex. Dirk right on the right-hand side. Ryan swooping around the outside of the pair of them. Azam trying to get involved as well, despite having a 10-second penalty looming over their head. Casper Flack still doesn't jump into the pits, but falls off the circuit in the process, along with Early, who's getting boxed in behind Casper Flack and Ryderdal. And Cameron Dow switching to the left-hand side. Could be 3 overtakes in the space of 1 straight for the Aston Martin here. Championship leader gets 2 of them done. Now around the outside of Ryderdal, and Cameron Dow is up into 11th.
Up into 11th and very much on the fringe of the points here. Azam has a penalty of 10 seconds, so Cameron Dalsdo will gain a place there, but he knows he can gain a few places on a few drivers here as there's a spin towards the back. I believe that is Ryderdal, who's made a mistake, but in front as well. Epic Vale leading. Matteo 2nd, Brando in 3rd, Johan Francesco Largo 4th and 5th. Sergioli 4 seconds off the back of that top 5, and in a bit of no man's land because the next car behind 3.5 seconds, and that's TF10 Ryan. Then you've got Oscar, Dirk, Azam, Cameron Dowd, Elia Volokongan and Lifebound. All of that top 14 on the medium compound tyres, but Cameron Dowd's definitely going to be likely able to get something out of this race, which is good considering the Aston Martin previously really wasn't in contention for anything other than the wooden spoon.
Do need to think about Volokongan and Lifebad as well on much fresher medium tyres, as battles are plenty going on throughout the field. Owen trying to get past Brando but couldn't quite get up into the podium places. Oscar, Azim, Ryan and Dirk all scrapping over 7th place. 4 wide coming into the final couple of corners. It's now 2 wide between Dirk and Azim. The McLaren's going to run out of road on the outside and having to follow in behind the Williams car, still with that 10-second penalty, but looking for the smallest of gaps up the inside. Enter Cameron Dowds as well. We're going to be 5 cars scrapping from 7th down to 11th place. Ryan slightly wide of the apex of turn number 1. Cameron Dowds sniffing an opportunity to get up into the top 10 for the first time since lap number 1, and there's contact. Dirk into the side of Oscar going through turn number 3. Big slide that couches out Ryan, who dropped behind Volokongan and potentially Elia as well. That's a free spot for a couple of drivers.
Indeed, yeah, free spot and that gap nearly at 1 second as well, and that's another crucial point to look at, is how that gap ebbs and flows with that mistake made. Ryan nearly out of 1 second on Volokongan, although he does just manage to claw back into it, so crucially for him, he will keep within that magic 1 second window, but Cameron Dowd up into that top 10. He'll be happy with that, but still plenty of time between now and the end of the race. He could easily be getting 7th place out of this one, which is what he really needs with the likes of Matteo. Very much in contention for the win. In fact, he may even be about to make a move for the lead.
Having a little look up the inside. Contact behind as Brando runs into the rear of the Alpine car. Owen absolutely launches it around the outside and is incredibly successful in doing so and nabs third place away from Brando up into the top 3 for the first time in this race. The Red Bull driver, Francesco Largo, a very willing spectator at the back of this quintet, although might be thinking about making a move into turn number 1 and relegating Brando down into 5th position. Yes, look up the inside. Going to get very tight at the apex. Brave on the brakes is Francesco Largo, but I don't think he's satisfied with 4th. He wants 3rd place from the Red Bull, the sister car. RB versus Red Bull. The inside turns to the outside. Owen should favour to hold on to this place depending on the traction. It's a wobble for Francesco Largo and having to hold firm in 4th for the time being, following the footsteps of Owen, who is now trying to get up into 2nd place because Matteo was a little bit slow coming out of the snail section. Just a potential opportunity to have a look around the outside. Space is given to the Red Bull car. They will continue to be side by side, but now with the ERS, it is Matteo holding 2nd.
Yeah, Matteo, good job to defend that position, but the overtake was very much on for the Red Bull man, but also the RB was really sniffing at the heels of that Red Bull to try and make the move. So all of that top 5 so close and evenly matched, but Epic Vale not as much under threat as I think other drivers have been when they've been in the lead of the race. We'll admit though, I've noticed this over the last couple of laps. Sergioli is really struggling to the point now where Azam, who is now leading this gaggle of cars, is nearly within 1 second of the Alpine in front and could mean that we now have an opportunity for these drivers to have a battle for 6th as there's a battle for that 3rd place. Brando, Johan swapping places, going side by side and battling and squabbling once more, and nothing really too dramatic happening there on that occasion, but Brando sniffing on opportunity down the inside. That'll turn to the outside. Traction, as you said on the lap ago, dependent as to how you'll go on the exit, and well, traction not leading to Brando on that occasion, but could it be around the outside on the exit? Well, a nice exit, punchy exit, but not enough to dethrone Johan, who's in front.
And Sergioli has officially been reeled in. Oscar and Azim are going to be in DRS range come the end of lap number 24. And that front wing damage that Sergioli picked up on his outlap could prove crucial and could see the reigning F2 champion from battling for a potential podium falling outside of the top 10. It's really unravelled this race for Sergioli and the Alpine as his teammate continues to scrap away for the race victory, though Epic Vale has looked pretty comfortable out in front since taking the lead a few laps ago, and it's Matteo a little bit squirmy coming through 13 that probably has to look in his mirrors.
Indeed, yeah, I think Matteo is going to have to be looking in his mirrors here. He's definitely not got the pace to get ahead of the car in front, I don't think, down the straight. But doesn't look like Ewan is putting too much pressure onto the back of the Alpine man. Oh, it's an absolutely outrageous send around the outside, though. A beautiful attempt. And a compromised exit for Matteo could mean a good exit here, punchy exit for the Red Bull. Could allow an opportunity to sling it down the inside through the turn 1 sequence, but to no avail. Matteo holding steadfast in 2nd, but the Red Bull behind is really mounting on a whole world of pressure.
And Sergioli has now been overtaken by a couple of cars. Through goes Oscar around the outside of turn 1. Through goes Azam around the outside of turn number 2. From 6th is now down to 8th for Sergioli. Dirk is also nipping at the heels. In fact, he's alongside the Alpine coming out of turns 3 and 4. That front wing damage is going to be the downfall, you would imagine, for the reigning F2 champion. I think he's probably going to fall outside of the points paying position. Still the outside. Bit of a bump and grind as we go through turn number 6, but around the outside, more downfalls for the Williams car. Sergioli relegated 3 places in the space of a sector.
Indeed, yeah, really difficult for Sergioli because there's not much you can do. There really isn't much you can do. As Elia has made a mistake and gone to the back of the grid there. Not quite sure what that was a mistake. I think maybe just tagged around in the battle they were in. I believe that was with Marios, their battle there, that caused them to lose a few places. Enzo Sabaton and Bridadel swapping places towards the back of the order, but Sergioli now running in 9th place. What has happened there?
Hit the bump! He hit the bump on the curb coming out of turn 13. It absolutely catapulted him first to the right and then back into the middle of the circuit. I'm not sure who he collected. It might have been TF10 Ryan in the Red Bull, but that is his race most certainly over. As Lifebound, no, he clatters into Volakongan into the braking zone of turn number 14. Things starting to kick off as we've got a car going slowly. It's Azam, I think, may have picked up an illegal overtake potentially because he relinquished those two places very easily indeed. There's a battle for the lead going on as well, but we're going to be 3 wide as we cut the beam to start lap number 26. Azam back up into 6th place. Cameron Dowles trying to follow in the footsteps of the McLaren around the outside. He's going to run out of road on the left, and we're going to continue to see Oscar versus Dirk versus Azam. 3 Mercedes engine cars. Oscar a little bit wide of the apex, more contact, and that's obviously going to go badly. 3 wide trying to accelerate over the curbs, and it's Dirk that comes off worse. His points paying position going down the toilet.
Indeed, and well, unlike qualifying where you could have literally had enough rain for the toilet, unfortunately, no rain other than the tears that may be coming from the likes of Sergioli and now Dirk, who's really out of contention of this one as well. But Cameron Dowds is a good opportunity for him. A couple of drivers almost paving the way a little bit, giving him a few places on the track, and well, a bit of damage for a few cars as well, lending him a bit of an opportunity to get a few easy places, a few easy wins, and well, that's going to be probably pure relation for the Aston Martin man, who, well, that Scotsman, certainly will rejoice at a few more points in the championship as Brando Johan swap once again. They may even be swapping again as we head down that next DRS straight. No move from Cameron Dowds, but certainly it will be on. That Scotsman is going to be trying to fly down the inside.
Yeah, we really need to focus on this leading group of 5, though, in the penultimate lap of the race. Getting very, very feisty and becoming very, very close quarters between all 5 of them battling for the lead of this race. Epic Veil has been bulletproof ever since getting up into first place about 5 or 6 laps ago. Matteo hasn't really been able to hold a candle to the kick-out, but although, is he just waiting, biding his time and waiting for an opportunity to present itself on the final lap of the race with that DRS flap open? I think Brando Owen and Francesco Largo, though, are going to have something to say about that. There's 2 drivers in this leading group of 5 that have already won so far this season. Are we going to see a repeat winner for the first time, or will it be one of the other 3 that are yet to get a first place down on the board?
Indeed, yeah, going to be a crucial final couple of laps here. You'd say you maybe don't want to be on the lead as you begin that final lap of the race, but it really is still anyone's game. It won't be Max van der Kiest's game, though, because he has retired in the pit lane. He becomes the 3rd retirement of the evening as we now head on to the long back straight for the penultimate time. And well, Epic Veil still looking quite bulletproof. Francesco Largo looking to try and make a move on the inside of Johan, the Red Bull. The both Red Bull teams coming a cropper and battling once again. Cameron Dowds up into 7th place. He wants to get that 6th place on the road, even if Azam has a penalty to try and give himself the best chances, just in case for whatever reason it can be removed. But now onto that final lap of action, and well, Epic Veil still looking bulletproof out in front.
Put your balls in a lottery spinner, spin it and pick out one of the 5 names in this leading quintet. Which one of them is going to come over the line to pick up round number 4, the victory in China? It's Epic Veil, who has held the lead for what I think is probably the last 8 laps since we got to lap number 20. Matteo has been just waiting in behind and crucially hasn't lost out to the dueling trio behind, who have been very, very feisty indeed, knowing with a mistake coming through turn number 6, that could prove costly for not just himself, but Francesco Largo as well. Brando very close to the back of Matteo through the sweeps of the middle sector, almost shadowing every move the Alpine pulls in his pursuit of trying to get a 2nd win of the season and potentially get himself right in the thick of it in this championship battle. He started it 16 points behind Cameron Dowds, but with the Aston Martin having a few trials and tribulations, could be a huge opportunity to take a massive chunk out of that, and with 16 points he's going to be hoping to do so. Epic Veil coming out of turn number 13 for the final time, over to the middle of the circuit, trying to break the slipstream, but I think he could be defenseless going down into the braking zone of 14. ERS being deployed, rear wing flappers corners open. Over to the middle we go, but it's going to be absolutely no chance for Epic Vale, who's going to lose a couple of places. The Haas up the inside as well. Matteo has the lead of this race, but he won slightly wide. Bit of contact between the Sauber and the Haas behind, but it is the reigning champion who's come out on top to lead the race into the final corner. Epic Vale just leaking that spot coming round the final corner. It's Matteo over the line to win in China, and Owen just about falling or failing to get up onto the podium by half a tenth, misses out. Epic Vale was leading for so long, but he couldn't quite get the strategy right and couldn't quite get his positioning right. He didn't have the buffer through 13, ends up finishing in third, but it's a second podium for the Kick Sauber, and Francesco Lago just left himself with way too much to do.
Yeah, really is quite an interesting end to the race though, but good job for Matteo. A real great race for this one. A lot of drivers already jumping in the Discord. A lot of drivers not happy. Yoan already saying Epic Vale's going to get a pen for moving multiple times down the straight. Azam upset because he didn't get points, had a good race. Ryan just simply said, some of you guys should not be on this grid. So already, as you can imagine, drivers, we didn't see much of it, but for some, the blood boiling over because gaps in the train opening up and races being ruined just at the blink of an eye.
Yeah, quite the damning indictment, it has to be said. But it's Matteo, for the second time in as many weeks, that crosses the line to take the race victory. Owen disrupting the Italian brigade out in front. 1-2-3 for Italy, but Ireland coming home in fourth ahead of Francesco Lago. Cameron Dowds probably gets driver of the day, considering I think he was 16th when he came into the pits to get rid of his front wing damage, ending up 6th with a brilliant final stint. Oscar and Ryan holding station in 7th and 8th, Volokongan and then Dirk, the two McLarens, just about missing out on points. Difficult race for Mario's Formula, who found itself towards the back for the majority of it. Enzo Sabaton with the fastest lap. There was damage for Casper Flack early on as well. And only 3 drivers failed to see the flag. It was Max von der Geest, Riederdal and Sergioli after he picked up damage and started to tumble through the field as well.
Indeed, yeah, quite the interesting race, but as you say, Matteo leading the way come the end of 28 laps of that one. Brando, Epic Vale, Yoan, Francesco Lago, Cameron Dowds recovering to 6th, a good 6th place and good points out at the end of that one. And then Oscar, Ryan, Volokongan and Dirk rounding out the top 10. But, the results don't paint the full race. For quite a few drivers, I think. Certainly when you look at the likes of Cameron Dowds, that race was almost doomed from the start.
Yeah, that first lap just got caught up in that bit of traffic, got shuffled out, picking up damage, and then left himself with a lot of work to do. But he does maintain the championship lead, which he'll be absolutely delighted about. And I think when you look at the results, pole to lights out victory for Matteo, lights out to flag victory, for Matteo. Like you said perfectly, that does not tell the full story. Had to work very hard for it, left it until the final couple of corners of the last lap of the race to steal it from from Epic Vale, who was absolutely brilliant and probably looked, on the balance of things, the fastest driver around the circuit, but just wasn't quite able to convert that into a first win of PSF1.
Indeed, yeah, a really difficult one for a lot of drivers out of that one. We won't have Epic Vale for an interview. He's not available. We don't have anyone in the waiting room either, but we'll give it a moment. I know Matteo does normally join us if he has the time, so we'll hopefully hear from our race winner. But if we don't, I think it's really interesting that everyone, we didn't see much drama, but they almost created some of their own dramas just because of the circuit and how hard they have to defend down some of the straights. They're almost setting themselves up for failure in a way, but that's the desperate things they'll do to try and keep places. Moving down the straight, maybe a bit silly, but these drivers, they know the risk that they're taking.
It's a weird one because it's not acceptable, of course, but you can kind of understand it if it's the last lap of the race, for example, trying to defend with all you can and maybe getting a little bit desperate to hold on to places. But coming together when you're, say, a chasing pack, you're trying to work together to get back up to the leaders. is criminal, to be honest. You should be working together. You shouldn't be fighting that hard in this situation. We know how this game works. We've had it for 9-10 months. The DRS is so powerful. If you lose that DRS, the DRS to the car in front, say you're 1.5 seconds off the back of a group of cars, you have to work with the people that you are in that secondary group with if you're going to have any chance of getting some decent points. And I think what we've seen from this race and a couple of times earlier in the season as well, some drivers are still not quite as willing as they maybe should be to adapt, let's say, and use that as their tactic to try and get a better result for themselves.
Indeed, absolutely. Well, we will get to hear, and I'm glad we waited, from our race winner today, Matteo. Let's hear from him now. Well, Matteo, that was quite an interesting end to the race. The top 5 really were in a bit of a league of their own once the train split up. First and foremost, though, talk us through the race from your perspective.
So, good evening, everyone. Sounds really strange, but 2 poles in a row. This time I really didn't have hopes for the proposition because I was really slow around here. Rain saved the day. So always nice to add 1 point to the tally. And after that, race was pretty chill, I have to say. Nothing crazy. As you said, somehow we split the train in half, basically. And after that, it was just about pitting on lap 14, which is the ideal lap. No issues on that, obviously. And after that, I was P1, I think. I had the chance to break the train myself due to some hard runners. I just didn't have enough ERS going on to the back straight, and regardless, they would have catch me back. So, after that, I just went back into P2, kept a nice gap for every lap. Even though I gotta say, it was hard to balance the time lost on purpose with the advantage of pace Epic Veil had, because even on the last lap, I tried to be a little closer to have a comfortable overtake. It just got me by those 2 extra tenths that I didn't want him to gap. Just nice overtake, and that's the second win in a row.
Yeah, second win in a row, and a good win at that. Cameron Dowds didn't have the best of races. He was pretty much down the order from the start. So you're going to gain a healthy number of points on him. Is the championship still your target, especially with other people having a weaker round, or do you still think that kind of rough start to the season because you missed the first round, do you think that's really going to still continue to hamper the season?
No, I mean, championship has always been the target, even when I knew I would have skipped the first race, and even after Brazil didn't go that well. Of course, missing a race is a massive setback. I think that with my consistency that I've shown last season, I know it might take a better season than the previous one, but I think I can do it. And it's gonna be purely a closer season, a closer fight compared to the last season. Of course, Cameron had a broken wing. I don't know how he fought back to P6, and absolutely props to him on that, because I don't know how he even got points tonight. I think at the moment we're in a class of our own, we keep showing it week in, week out. So it will absolutely be a good fight between us two, I think.
Absolutely. Well, questions from you, Tom?
I just want to know, do you feel like you managed that race absolutely perfectly? Because from the outset, you didn't actually lead the race for, I think, the last 6 or 7 laps or so, but you always looked like you were in complete control of your position, the gap to Epic Veil in front and the gap to the trio behind. You were fighting very, very hard. Do you think from a management perspective, you got that absolutely spot on?
I think that from lap 20 to 27, more or less, I managed the race absolutely perfectly, because I had the perfect gap basically in every lap to not be attacked from behind, but at the same time use ERS and not overtake Epic Veil. So those 7-8 laps were absolutely perfect. And as I said, it was hard on the last lap because Veil had a bit more pace, but in the end, I made it work. That's it.
Lovely. Well, we will let you shoot off, Matteo, but congratulations on the win. And, 2 on the bounce. Let's see if we can make it 3 next time out.
Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Cheers,
You
Matteo.
too. I always love speaking to Matteo. He's always good. He's always willing to answer the questions, give you all of that juicy insight. And, well, more juicy insight tonight. Championship on. I mean, after you miss a round, and I really must have thought when he missed that first round that I didn't think he would be able to really challenge it, but he's got the faith, he's got that belief.
100%. And I think Cameron Dowles will probably take a lot from this race as well, considering, halfway through the race he was 16th. He wasn't in the same postcode, to be honest, as that group that were battling over what became 6th place. So to show that level of pace, consistency, calmness, because it got very, very tense, the battling in that midfield, in particular when he caught up to the battle for what was at the time, I think it was 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th with Dirk, Ryan, Azam was in there. Then they caught up to Sergioli. Could have easily maybe just got a little bit too ambitious, a little bit too impatient, knocked a front wing off for the second time. And here we go again, losing places again. And then picking up a very, very limited haul of points. But 6th is very, very solid. And I think it keeps him in a very decent position. Obviously, he's still the championship leader, but he'll gain a lot of confidence from that recovery job.
Indeed, yeah, it really was a good wow. Yes, indeed, was a really good round for Matteo, but a good recovery drive from Cameron Dowles as well, which will see us all the more closer next time out. And speaking of that elusive next time out, 5 more rounds to go of this season, and China next time out. Not China next time out, is Austria next time out. If I can read a calendar correctly, we may get somewhere meaningful. But yeah, Austria next time out. Then Britain, Singapore, Mexico and Abu Dhabi to round off this season. These are all tracks where overtaking is absolutely going to happen, but it is going to be absolute carnage. It's going to be absolute chaos. It's going to be a beautiful end to the season.
Austria in particular, that's effectively a glorified go-kart track, isn't it? So we're going to be seeing some wild stuff going on in 7 days' time. So stay tuned, because the championship is very much on. Like I said, it's the 2 drivers we thought would be in contention, the 2 protagonists of Cameron Dowles and Matteo. Big chunk taken out of the Aston Martin driver's lead, but he is still very much in the driver's seat going into the midway point of this season.
Indeed, absolutely. Well, you couldn't sum it up any better. We hope to see you next time out. We head to the glorified go-karting track that is Austria, and head to the lovely, lovely Red Bull Ring in the forest of the Austrian hills. When the mountains come alive, there is no doubt to be a good race around there. But until next time, when PSGL PSF1 returns and we take you to the Austrian Grand Prix. Until then, though, take care, stay safe, and we will see you next time out. But until then, bye-bye.